Welcome to the That's Net Show. We're here live. We're going to talk about Brock Purdy. Where is he in terms of ranking? And we're going to get into who the 49ers are really going to draft with the 11th overall pick. What's going on, Sal?
What's going on, brother?
So let's get right into this. I think we're going to be, are we reacting to that video or no?
Yep.
Okay, so.
Yeah, so here's a little quick take of LeSean McCoy speaking about Brock Purdy and whether or not he is a top 10 quarterback.
What did he say?
Combine them.
He said he's
Kyle
great. Uh-oh.
and combine it with our team.
I'm sorry. Oh, we're live? I'm sorry. That was that's what the owner was saying. I just want to take the
Chase, it's on you. Do you agree that he's a top 10 quarterback? He's great, Brock Purdy.
This is a very interesting and elevated conversation that we not only are going to have right now, but we had a very spirited conversation in our pregame meeting. Yes, I do. I agree that Brock Purdy is a top 10 quarterback. And when you look at top 10 quarterbacks, I just want to just purely for right now, before I get into this graphic, I want to show you the top 10 quarterbacks in the league are the top 31% of the quarterbacks in the league. So Brock Purdy, in my opinion, is in the top 31% of quarterbacks in the league. Let's show the graphic. So I did tiers. This is not in order. This is, we wanted faces up there. Okay. So tier one to me is like, you can put the team on your back time and time again. You are a truly elite talent thrower of the football. We can all agree.
Let's pause that real quick.
These four guys.
Let's talk about those tiers. Like, I think it's pretty easy to take Jared Goff out of tier, or I guess that whole thing is tier 2.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty fair because it's easy to put Purdy above Goff, but it's easy to put Goff above Purdy. So, yeah, I guess that's 12 quarterbacks right there. I mean, I had Brock Purdy clear in my top 10 before last year, and it's easy to just take him out of the top 10 after one bad year, but a lot of his bad play had to do with people around him, had to do with the coaching. So
I think the most accurate take so far was by Jed York himself. And Jed York feels that Brock Purdy's a top 10, but he also implied he's a top 10 when he's got Kyle Shanahan calling plays.
Right.
If you get the Kyle Shanahan of old, not so much last year, but before that, where he called plays to assist Brock Purdy and make life easy on Brock Purdy, I really do think you have a fair argument calling him a top 10 quarterback. Having said that, he's a top 10 quarterback because of where he is, and when that's the reason, you got to be cautious as to what you pay him, because if you pay him a little bit too much, now it starts to affect his surroundings, and then you may not get a top 10 quarterback. There's a reason why Brock Purdy was drafted in the 7th round. Obviously, Brock Purdy has excelled and shown that he's better than a 7th round pick. There's no argument there.
No.
But the reason why Brock Purdy was drafted in the 7th round is because he's a smaller guy with a weaker arm. Those are the facts, and those do matter in the NFL. The reason why Brock Purdy's been able to excel and, those type of things haven't hurt him as much as you would expect is because, Shanahan has a way of making offense easy for a quarterback, and, surrounding him with such great talent is another thing. And, if he gets paid that kind of money, it's going to obviously affect his surroundings. And that's why I think what Jed York said applies very well. And, that's the reason why probably Jed York is trying to convince him that, you might be worth 60 mil in your mind, but the reality is your surroundings plus your coach is the true reason why you are a top 10 quarterback.
Yeah, I want to take a little bit more Brock Purdy's side because, listen, man, at the end of the day, every quarterback needs coaching. Every quarterback needs good coaching. It's the truth. And every quarterback needs talent around them to succeed. We see it time and time again. Every successful quarterback has had a lot of talent around them. That's just how it is. Now, yeah, I agree. Brock Purdy was a 7th round pick because of his stature and because he doesn't have a strong arm, but he's really smart. And he's obviously a lot better than what a 7th round pick is. I think he's borderline top 10, but how easy is it to move him in and out of that ranking? Like at the end of next year, we could easily be saying, yeah, Purdy's around the 8 to 10 area, like I was before last year. Now I have him around the 10 to 12 area because of one bad season where a lot of it had to do with Kyle Shanahan and a lot of it had to do with injuries around him. Like,
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, the truth is Brock Purdy's talent ability is not something that jumps off the screen. And that's why you're going to always have this pushback as to Brock Purdy being a top 10 quarterback. But that's not always what determines you being a top 10 quarterback. You know, what Sam Darnold said of, when he spoke of Brock Purdy and how high he spoke of him in terms of preparation and what he does in the film room. These are things that don't show up on TV on Sundays in terms of, people seeing what the preparation's all about. But you see that preparation coming into fruition when you see a guy with his arm talent being able to play at such a high level. And, look what it did for Sam Darnold the following season. He goes to Minnesota and has his career year. So I think he took away from Brock Purdy how to prepare for the game, and it benefited him clearly. So I think the 49ers are aware of Brock Purdy and who he is. I also believe that they know him better than anybody else. And you got to listen to what they're saying. And what they're saying is he's not worth 50 to 60 million. And I agree with them. But I'm just going to hit play here and just let them finish their take here.
We don't agree on much these days.
That is true.
Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and Lamar Jackson are in the tier by themselves. I was struggling, maybe Matthew Stafford, but this is what I
on that top tier.
probably agree.
What about that? What about that Jalen?
No.
See, I love that Chase Daniels, just to say something real quick. He's one of the few analysts that literally ranks the quarterbacks almost exactly the way I mentioned before, with Max Stafford being the guy that's on the brink of top 4, but he's just not. And he said that right there, and I totally agree with him. I think the top 4 are in a tier of their own. Matthew Stafford would be the 5th guy right behind them, and then after that, the tier 2 becomes true. Jalen is not in tier 1. You know what I mean? And he's not the first guy in tier 2.
Yeah, 100%.
No.
What about Jaden?
You're messing up my take.
Okay.
So you're messing up my take. So those 4, and maybe Stafford, right? But I just said those 4 right now are without a doubt, in most people's and GM's opinion, that's the tier 1. And then here, I have 12 total. So we're talking top 10. For me, you look at the next tier. This is not in order. Do not freak out. I want to make sure we understand this. Shady, especially you. Okay, Herbert, Stafford, Goff. I do believe Jaden Daniels is in that next tier. Okay, Brock Purdy, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, CJ Stroud. Now, when you're looking at those second tier of guys, is it glaringly obvious that Purdy doesn't belong with that group of guys? Like glaringly from just looking at this, does he not belong in that category to you guys?
A couple dudes missing over there.
Yeah.
No, not to me.
It's not
Not
for me,
glaring.
it's not glaring,
Not glaring.
right? And I think for me to get this list down to a top 10, it's like, okay, where does Purdy fit in that area? To me,
I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's not glaring that Brock Purdy doesn't look like he fits in with those quarterbacks in that tier 2. Another question you could ask yourself, if you take Jalen Hurts off the Philadelphia Eagles and you put Brock Purdy on the Philadelphia Eagles, do they still come out with a ring? And it's like very easy for me to say yes, because man, they won through defense. Yes, he did, make some plays and, long balls on the money and whatever, but football is real easy when you're playing quarterback and your defense is dominating and you're playing with the lead and the pressure's off. The other team's kicking field goals, if that, mostly punting, and you're getting turnovers that are putting you in the red zone. All that stuff benefits you drastically. So, Brock Purdy is top 10. He's not top 5. The top 5 are, to me, it's very clear. Like, you got the top 4, they're in their tier alone, and I agree with Chase Daniels all day. And then I put Matt Stafford right after that.
Okay,
Matt Stafford, best quarterback in our division. Make no mistake about it.
I want to push back on one thing you said, putting Brock Purdy on the Eagles. Now, I agree that it is a quarterback's dream to be on the Eagles right now. Absolute quarterback's dream. Brock Purdy has had that too. Maybe he's not as dominant. That defense is stupid. Don't get me wrong. But a big part beating the Kansas City Chiefs was Jalen Hurts' deep ball, which is one thing he obviously does very well. Okay, very well. Something that Brock Purdy doesn't have. Brock Purdy, a lot of people trash on his deep ball. It's not as bad as people say. Like, in reality, it's not. He doesn't get as much opportunity, and he doesn't have the strongest arm to get launches as far as Jalen Hurts, maybe. It's not as bad as Jalen Hurts, but Jalen Hurts does it at a super high level. And I know a point you said while we were watching the Super Bowl is that is the way to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. They're manning you up, and they got a lot of players in the box, and they have safeties coming down. If you could beat them over the top, it helps you. So Jalen Hurts is almost like the perfect quarterback against the Kansas City Chiefs for that one reason. He could scramble. He's good on the ground, and he has a sick deep ball. So I don't know if Brock Purdy would have won that Super Bowl. It's easy to say that he could have because of how dominant
It's very
was.
easy to say. Come on, man. The Philadelphia Eagles play defense, and
but it's
I
not
don't care who's playing quarterback. There's a lot of quarterbacks in the league that are winning that Super Bowl with the way that defense played.
But it's not easy to say that he would be there. It's not. Listen, I'm not a big Jalen Hurts supporter. I'm not. I think Brock Purdy is arguably better than Jalen Hurts. I'm completely there with you. But at the end of the day, Jalen Hurts has a really nice deep ball that helped get them to the Super Bowl and helped them dominate in the Super Bowl. You can't say Brock Purdy could have done that as easily as Jalen Hurts did.
All I'm going to say is it's very easy for me to say that Brock Purdy wins the Super Bowl with that Philadelphia Eagles team if they perform the exact same way they did. Because when a quarterback gets given short fields through turnovers off your defense, and when a quarterback is given the lead through your defense, because they also had a pick six, the amount of pressure that you put on a guy even like Patrick Mahomes in that situation. Look what happened to Patrick Mahomes. You know what I mean? Like he didn't look like Patrick Mahomes. And the reason why is because when you're under pressure every play, the reality sets in. You can make a Patrick Mahomes look very average. And that's exactly what you've seen. The 49ers weren't unable to do that to Patrick Mahomes the year before. They played they played a good performance. There's no doubt about it on defense. But it just wasn't comparable. I just want to finish the rest of this take here and then we'll
Sorry, before you start that. Papa J says Brock Purdy is the most accurate and the most long bombs in the NFL. Okay, I've seen that statistic. It's the most accurate, but he definitely does not have the most long bombs in the NFL. The statistic is he has the highest completion percentage on deep balls, and that's because he takes so very few of them, and when he does, they're open. So don't say that he has the most long bombs. That's completely false.
No, he doesn't have the most long bombs, but he is accurate on the long bomb, and there's a reason for it. We dial up plays where a guy is pretty damn open too.
Exactly.
I mean, there's not, if you think about it, if you're a 49ers fan, Papa J, think about this. All those long balls, how many of them were contested? And be honest with yourself. Like for the most part, Brandon Ayuk was getting pretty damn open. He had a deep ball even to, I think, who was the back this year? Isaac Garendo. But, the great thing about that throw is he threw it early and it was on the money. And it landed in the bucket. But he threw it early to a wide open player. So he's literally putting it up and say, get under it and let the player, do the rest. I think the great thing about those plays is recognizing a guy open more so than, like he's not it's not tight man coverage. That's not what Brock Purdy does. Brock Purdy throws on time and with accuracy for sure, but he's a window thrower and he needs lanes on the O-line. You cannot have a true pass rush on Brock Purdy. And what I mean by that is gap pressure. So each gap has a big defensive lineman coming at him with hands up. That's not a good situation for a Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy needs lanes like the way Drew Brees needed lanes. So A gap and B gap pressure is like his worst nightmare. So those are the reasons, a lot of those reasons, whenever I start to think of Brock Purdy being a top 5, there's no way I could ever consider him being a top 5 because those reasons right there. Now, Drew Brees was a top 5, but Drew Brees could make every single throw. And Drew Brees was in a system where they understood how to make lanes. If you paid attention to Drew Brees' film, his O-line used to make lanes as to where the play was designed to go.
Yeah.
They understood his weakness, which was height. Outside of that, Drew Brees was money.
No.
that's from this.
I think I'm taking out Dak, and I think I'm taking out CJ Stroud. Right? And I think you can slide Purdy into that. Now, let me just get to the whole point of why I think that Brock Purdy is a top 10 quarterback. Okay, QBs, and this is what everyone up here is going to say because I'm already ready for it. QBs are supposed to run the system of the head coach. People think, and a lot of people out there think, that labeling quarterbacks as a system quarterback is bad. Every head coach I have been with that is going to go into the Hall of Fame, Andy Reid and Sean Payton, okay, played with them, been in their quarterback meetings. They want their quarterbacks to be system quarterbacks. You have to be really good at running the system at which it's deployed. And
What do you think? What do you think of that?
I want to talk about this whole system narrative. Okay, if you pull up the list of the quarterbacks he just had outside of the tier 1, okay, outside of the tier 1.
Oh, hold on. Let's respond to this. It's worth responding to.
Okay.
Okay. Again, receivers were literally not getting open. They had absolutely zero separation throughout the whole season. I wasn't referring to just this past season. What I'm trying to say is Brock Purdy. Okay, for sure the 49ers have not had the best man receivers. Brandon Ayuk is a guy that can get separation man. Jennings, he happens to get open in man, but it is a tight throw. And Ricky Pearsall, you're going to see a different Ricky Pearsall this year. I can assure you that. So the 49ers will be fine in man. Don't tell me that, George Kittle doesn't get open in man. George Kittle will get open. So, and then he had Christian McCaffrey coming out of the backfield, another guy that gets open in man. Mm-hmm. So the 49ers are way more talented than what you're giving them credit for. Now, what Chase Daniels is speaking of right here is a quarterback being a system guy is not necessarily a bad thing. And the 49ers kind of want him to fit their system. And that's not really a knock on a quarterback. They wouldn't want a quarterback to play outside the system. But at the same token, to call Brock Purdy a game manager like we used to call Jimmy G, that would be a crime. It's not true. Brock Purdy creates through his legs. Brock Purdy, is fantastic in the pocket. And he's willing to extend plays to find somebody downfield. The little things like that, you wouldn't see Jimmy G do. Even like the throw that, you said that one time in the playoffs when he threw it up to Brandon Ayuk. Yes, it was lucky. It bounced off the guy's forehead. But at the same time, Jimmy G won't even make that throw. He wouldn't even attempt it. So he's trusting his number one and he's giving him an opportunity. And the one play that really sticks out in my mind when he did that, when he started to turn a corner, was in Pittsburgh week 1. There was a sideline 20-yard throw to Brandon Ayuk, like a jump ball back shoulder. The throw was on the money. And it's, the trust 50-50 ball that, we wouldn't really see with Jimmy G. So you could tell that he was elevating his game. That season he had a big year. Brock Purdy really took a step. Last year was frustrating because, he had a lot of people going down around him and it affected his game. There's no doubt about it. All I'm saying, Papa J, is you can't keep making excuses for Brock Purdy. Yes, he had injuries around him. But what if those injuries turn into salary cap issues and they're not injured anymore? They're just not able to keep them.
Yeah. To respond a little bit more to Papa J, he says he literally leads the league in go routes. Ifs are not facts. Okay. So the facts aren't the go routes. Okay. It was deep balls. That's number one. So they're not go routes. He's not throwing a ton of go routes. That's just the facts. Go watch the film. Number two.
He's referring to passes over 20 yards.
That's not what he was referring to.
No, I know those are the facts.
Those are the facts.
It's not go routes, right?
It's not go routes. Second, when you think of the odd times Deebo Samuel catches a deep ball and goes to the house, he's wide open. Don't tell me people aren't getting wide open. Deebo Samuel's 70-yard touchdown against Seattle was wide open. So, right. And again, not a go route, a post route. So, or a corner. I can't remember what the route was. Anyways, yeah, don't tell me Brock Purdy's throwing the best go routes in the league. That's just ignorance. Second of all, back to what I was saying about his tiers. Outside of the quarterbacks that he has in tier 1, those quarterbacks in tier 2, how many of them can you pick up, put them on a completely different team, and guarantee their success? Can you guarantee that if you picked up Jaden Daniels and put him on the Browns, he has success? Can you guarantee that if you picked up Jared Goff and put him on the Jaguars, he has success? You can't. You have to play within the system, like he's saying. So the system quarterback aspect is an overrated thing to say. It's so overrated. Brock Purdy's
the only time it doesn't become overrated is when you're talking about tier one, because tier one is the tier that you feel like it doesn't matter where they go, they're going to have success.
right.
And the reality is those are the guys that deserve between 50 and 60. And after that, the league needs to get this corrected. These guys need to be getting paid in the 40s. You know, it's the truth. Like, you can't pay a guy that's in tier 2 or on the brink of tier 3 even. He really is. He's in between tier 2 and tier 3. Like, I'm okay with that list that he made there. I'm not totally against it. You know, there's going to be some guys that will argue Bo Nix maybe that should be put in there, and then you could start, you know, bringing
Jordan
in
Love.
like Jordan Love and Tua and whoever else that you want to mix it in. Trevor Lawrence, some people will even say, but I don't know. I don't hate the list that he made there. You know, anybody that thinks Brock Purdy's tier 3 is basically saying that, you know, either Bo Nix, Trevor Lawrence, or Tua are better than Brock Purdy. And you could easily make the argument that Brock Purdy's better than those guys because the success he's had is real. Like, coming back in the playoffs, not a lot of people can say they've done that, and he's done it more than once. So that's when the pressure is on the most. I've seen Dak Prescott, who's also in that top tier right there, as tier 2. I've seen Dak Prescott lose to a rookie quarterback with a defense that was pretty damn good and kept the game to 19-12. And Dak Prescott in the fourth quarter was terrible. And he turned over the ball in the first half when they had a chance to kick a field goal right before the half, or maybe a touchdown. He threw an interception to Jimmy Ward. These are situations that you cannot ignore and you cannot forget. So, not speaking from a Niner fan perspective, what I remember is Brock Purdy in the fourth quarter, 6 minutes left, driving 90 some odd yards to take the lead against the Dallas Cowboys. And then the Cowboys receiving the ball, and Dak Prescott should have took a safety.
Yeah.
Got away lucky. So these are the guys that you're going to put in tier 2. You have to, I don't know. I'm very comfortable with Brock Purdy being in tier 2.
Yeah, these are the things that aren't taken account as much as they should when you're talking top 10 quarterbacks. When Dak Prescott gets all jittery and he makes mistakes and he throws picks, it's easy to forget about it when Dak Prescott it's easy to forget about it when Dak Prescott has the strong arm and he has the height and he has the weight that you like in a quarterback, right? So Brock Purdy doesn't have that, but Brock Purdy's not making these mistakes because he's smarter than Dak Prescott, because he's better under pressure than Dak Prescott. That's why Brock Purdy is put in that tier. If you're going to put Dak Prescott there, you have to put Purdy there.
Okay, so we got a Dolphins fan on Instagram, Tarek, saying that Tua is better than Brock Purdy. Here's the easiest response to that. Okay, the thing that I specialize in when it comes to football is defense. And this is my scouting report for Tua. And if you're going to tell me I'm wrong, I'm just going to laugh in your face because this is the truth. You want to stop Tua, take away his first look, and you'll see a jittery Tua. As soon as you take away the play design, which is done by Mike McDaniels, as soon as you take that away, you find a quarterback that the old coach hated. Let's not forget the coach before Mike McDaniels, what he thought of Tua. He had no praise, and sure, that can affect the quarterback and his performance and ruin his confidence. And that's what you saw. So Mike McDaniels kind of revived him in a way. But even with Mike McDaniels, you still see a struggling Tua. Tua takes sacks and gets hurt because as soon as the first look is gone, you see a different player. Yes, he throws on time when the initial play is there and it comes out hot and it's accurate. I won't take that away from him. But Tua is not better than Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's preparation is much better. Brock Purdy's ability to extend plays is much better. Brock Purdy's ability to run if needed be to get a first down is much better. Brock Purdy's only thing that you could say is not as good as Tua is his arm strength. But is Tua's arm strength great? No. So
not at all.
Tua is not better than Brock Purdy. That's
right. So the number one
that's
thing
not true.
The number one thing I was gonna say is if you're making that statement, what does Tua do better than Brock Purdy? I don't know if you could put arm strength there. They're both trash. Tua's a little bit better. Who cares? What does
they don't
Tua do?
Arm strength's not the thing for either one of them.
No, so don't even bring up arm strength. What does Tua do that is better than Brock Purdy? Is he better under pressure? No. Tua hasn't even really seen real pressures for us to know. Okay. He gets jittery, like you said, after the first look. Is he better scrambling the ball? No. Does he have better stature? No. Same problem.
Yeah, like at the end of the day, Tua's strength is his accuracy, but that accuracy is only great when the first look is there. As soon as you take away Tua's first look, he's not the same quarterback. Just put on the film. I say it all the time when I'm watching my Miami Dolphins. I can't wait till his first look is being taken away. As soon as it happens, he starts to throw picks. He starts to panic. He starts to take sacks. And then, sure, he doesn't have a great O-line. And that's another reason why he needs his first look to be there, because as soon as his first look's not there, he's in trouble.
Yeah, Brock Purdy doesn't have a great O-line either. And Brock Purdy's accuracy is very good as well. So Brock Purdy's just
I think Brock Purdy's just better. He's got the blood, he's got that ice in his veins when it matters the most. He's
so at the end of the day,
again.
There's a reason he's had more success. You could talk about the roster, but at the end of the day, he's had more success because he, like you said, he's a gamer and he's got ice in his veins. He doesn't feel pressure. I love that about Brock Purdy. That's the number one thing I have on him.
Okay, let's move on. An NFL insider says the 49ers will either draft Banks or Barron with their 11th overall pick. This was on the Grant Cohen show today. I hope this is not accurate. And the reason why I say that is because I don't want to see the 49ers go offensive tackle in Banks. Not that I have anything against Banks. I just, in terms of need, we have 2 tackles that started on the team last year that are returning. So that need is not the first round pick right now. The 49ers have a gaping hole on D-line. They got to look at defensive end, which is the edge, or they got to look at D tackle. I don't think there's any two ways about it. That's the bottom line. And Barron's a solid corner in the NFL. He's going to be a solid corner in the NFL. I have no doubt about it. But if the 49ers did go Barron first round and followed up with 2 defensive tackles, it just means that we don't get the edge player we want. I don't hate it as much as an offensive tackle first round. And the reason why I say that is there is a guy that's going to cost us $10 million this year that needs to step up his game and stay healthy. So if they did go that route, based on where the money is going, it makes sense. I'm not saying that that's exactly what I would want, but it is definitely a likely possibility.
So if the 49ers go with the offensive tackle the first round, the only thing that makes sense in my mind is they're writing this year off and they're looking forward to 2026 because they are going to need a tackle in 2026 with McKivitz likely gone and Trent Williams likely gone. So that's almost like they're drafting for 2026. And it's almost like they're saying they'll find a D tackle in the later rounds and they'll find free agents next year to help on the D line. That's the only thing that makes sense offensive tackle. I don't see that happening because I don't think they're writing this year off. I don't think they could afford to write this year off. And the corner makes sense. I don't like it. I just want defensive line early.
Yeah, and I'm surprised that he said Barron. Like at the 11th pick, I think Will Johnson will probably be there as well. I think both of them will be there. So I've seen a lot of people put Will Johnson above Barron, but I've also seen a few people put Barron above Will Johnson. Yeah. I've watched the tape on both. I do like I like Barron. I'm not going to lie, but I feel like Will Johnson's the better player. Maybe I'm wrong. The reality is when you're looking at college corners, the best evaluation you can get is when they're going against guys that are getting drafted high in the NFL. Right. And that to me is my favorite tape to watch, to see the productivity against a guy like that. So that tape is out there for both guys. And I like Will Johnson more.
Is one of them more of a man corner? I can't remember which one it is. One of them is like a lockdown man corner. And one of them
see, Barron is like a physical corner, but so is Will Johnson is a lockdown corner. I watched, I'll never forget the one game that I did watch of him in full this year. He had a pick six. He had a couple big plays in the game. And the commentator was just talking about him the whole game. And then he gets a pick six, just fulfilling what he was saying about him. So Will Johnson is definitely somebody that I would want, but not at 11. And so it means we're probably not going to get him. Unless we're willing enough, unless the 49ers are willing to draft corner. It's just when you look at this roster, the thing that stands out the most right now is a big problem in between the two edge players, and that's the interior on D-line. I really can't even bring you a credible name unless you want to call Givens and Elliott credible names. And Anderson. Anderson, frick, man, when we were in Buffalo and we saw him in the hotel, it was hard to believe he was an NFL player. The guy was ordering pizza. He was a big dude. Just not what you would expect an NFL D tackle to look like. Sure, they should be big and whatever. It's just he didn't look like the professional athlete you would expect.
Yeah, all I know is if they draft at 11 outside of D lineman, they better be right about him. Like, he better be a Pro Bowler, a future All-Pro. He better be nasty. It can't be any other way.
Yeah, I mean, and again, if you're looking at the best corner in the draft, and he's gone before 11, which he probably will be, and that's Travis Hunter. That's what leaves me sour about taking Will Johnson or Barron, because they're not even the best corner in the draft. Now, the chance of getting
disagree. There's a lot of people that say that.
Man, anybody that doesn't think Travis Hunter is a freaking next level talent who's going to play offense and defense, they're crazy, man. That guy is absolutely unbelievable. His workout, his pro day, the routes that he was running, and how crisp they were, and the explosiveness.
Mm-hmm.
This is coming again. I played defensive back, and I'm telling you, when I'm watching that, I'm thinking to myself, holy crap. And trust me, man, that guy is going to come to play. He looks very explosive and clean in his routes.
He's a freak athlete. The concern is that corner. A lot of people say that there is better corners than Travis Hunter. Those two possibly will be more successful. In terms of wide receiver, that's what makes Travis Hunter a clear top 3 pick, is because he's nasty at both. 100%.
There's a pick that Travis Hunter had in the end zone. He was playing cut coverage, and he's splitting the flat with the corner over top at the back cone, and he's splitting it so well. And when he decides to finally throw the corner, he breaks off and goes up and gets it. I don't know, man. I've seen a lot of good DBs on tape in college. His shit pops off the film. And if you understand corner and the things that they're asked to do in the NFL, aside from playing man, this guy hits all the check marks, man. So I'm not saying that Barron and Will Johnson don't do that and that they can't play at a high level with them. I'm just saying, to me, the clear-cut best corner in this draft is Travis Hunter. If you're going to include the whole package in terms of tackling, then you could start talking Barron. But I don't think Barron does what Travis Hunter does outside of that. So I don't know, man. I give it to Travis Hunter, no doubt.
Okay, I see a lot of NFL people, a lot of insiders, you could say, or reporters, I guess, saying that they're expecting McMillan to drop past 11 because of that video. Is there a chance Shanahan does that? Like, this guy is he was a clear top 10 pick, and now if he drops to the Niners,
I don't think there's a chance, even with Shanahan and his habits, because Pearsall was taken in the first round last year. Had Pearsall not been taken last year, and even though we had those gaping holes on defense, there's a possibility he would do that and drive us all crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But not this year. I think this year, the 49ers have almost forced their hand as to who they're going to draft by their decisions in free agency. So the 49ers would make no mistake about it. They should go defensive line. And I've been saying it all month. Go 3 picks in a row on the D-line and address the issue, because you cannot win in the NFL if a team can run on you. And right now, with the roster that we have before this draft, if they do not address it, I will bet anything you want. I'll bet the house on it. The 49ers teams will run right down their throat from the first quarter. Usually offenses start to open it up in the third and fourth quarter. It'll open up in the first quarter because we just don't have the guys for it. Right. So I think the one thing I like about Kyle Shanahan is Kyle Shanahan wants to win with defense. And, he's not just an offensive minded guy who doesn't understand that you need a good defense. And if you pay attention to the 49ers rosters and the 49ers success, they've had a lot of good 49er defenses, and he understands that. And, it's so much so that he flew to Dre Greenlaw's house with John Lynch at a last attempt effort to try to retain him. Ultimately, it didn't work out, and they made the mistake of not offering that same contract prior to the Broncos. That's where the mistake was made. Almost offended the guy, and Dre Greenlaw went off to go what he did, and that's signing with the Broncos.
Yeah, we have a problem. There's a problem with Dre Greenlaw being gone. I don't think they were expecting that.
Right.
They all of a sudden start talking really high on D Winters, but at the end of the day, I don't think they're expecting Greenlaw to be gone. I think they just thought, okay, well, let's get the number down as low as we can. He'll stay. He loves Fred Warner. He loves the organization. He'll stay. So that was just a big headache. They didn't expect to happen. Guaranteed.
So a report came out today that the 49ers have been linked to CJ Mosley. And the reason why it kind of makes sense is that Robert Saleh came from the Jets. CJ Mosley got cut from the Jets. And it would almost be like a happy reunion between the two. I just don't know where CJ Mosley is anymore as a player. Is he still as dominant? He's an older guy. Does he still have something left in the tank? I do believe that he does, but to what extent is the question? Do we go and sign him, or do we, give D Winters an opportunity that he's been waiting for and see what he's capable of?
Yeah, I've spoken on this before, man. If Winters isn't on the field this year, it's a mistake. I think the sort of narrative of this season is the young guys are going to play, so let it happen. I don't want us to sign Mosley, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I would be in favor of D Winters seeing the field and the 49ers addressing D-line, corner, and maybe even a safety if they can. But maybe let Jair get another shot and not address that and go to O-line after that. And the 49ers will get one running back. That's just what Shanahan does, and he even said he's going to do it.
Yeah. Did you know D Winters? I believe I heard this in a video today. I'm gonna double check this. D Winters was a 4.40.
I know that D Winters is much faster than people are aware of, and I've talked about this. Yeah, and I've talked about this. Yeah, like I say, D Winters in terms of coverage, the 49ers have no issues with him. It's going to come down to what he's like during the on the run, because D Winters, man, we've talked about this in the past. The play that he made against the Kansas City Chiefs on a backside post, a guy that's supposed to get the hook curl and recognizes the post coming from the opposite side of the field, never mind recognizes it. He gets to it and shuts the play down and forces basically a ball to their feet when Patrick Mahomes, for a fact, is ready to put that thing on a dot over top of his head like any other linebacker would allow. But because of that 4.4 speed, he's able to do things that other linebackers aren't. Now, the concern of D Winters, it's got to be on run. The reason why I say that is if a guy's running a 4.4 and is able to make plays like that play for a defensive coordinator, I'm telling you, it's popping off the film. That's going to make him, get pretty excited. So if he's still not on the field after doing something like that, it tells you that he must have some issues on the run. We haven't seen enough of D Winters to really evaluate his run defense. So that's the reason why I say that.
I mean, I don't know. Were they just pressured to play Devondre Campbell because they spent $5 million on him and he would throw a tantrum if he didn't get put in as the starter? Is that a possibility? And because D Winters was just really young. Like, I don't think it's fair to say that it's a concern of D Winters. I just think we'll leave it at a question mark because we haven't seen it yet. I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. To me, the 49ers, for whatever reason, were highly invested in Campbell. Mentally, never mind. I'm not talking about finances. For whatever reason, they ignored the play. And a part of that has to do with Nick Swanson, who, in my opinion, is probably the worst defensive coordinator to ever run the 49ers. You could argue maybe one of the worst defensive coordinators in the NFL. And the reason why I say that is because you've seen a struggling player week in, week out. You've seen lack of athleticism like you've never seen before. I've seen Campbell almost like give up on plays because it was like embarrassing how bad he got beat. It was like, he lost who he was. The guy was a pro ball player and he got older and he lost that athleticism that he used to have as a young guy. And I don't want to say he wasn't motivated anymore. Maybe that was the case, but it was like he accepted the fact at some point in that season, maybe like week 6, that he wasn't the same and his effort went down.
Right. 100%. Papa J says Wilkes was definitely better than Sorensen. I challenge you to name somebody worse than Sorensen.
Yeah, and then the funny thing is with Wilkes, the 49er fans, myself included, I'm not a huge fan of Wilkes either, and it's for the same reason. The way I judge a defense coordinator is, it's the first thing I always go to. Does he make it tough on the offense? Does like when you're coming up to the line of scrimmage, do you know what we're in? And are you confused as a quarterback at the snap? And if you're not ever, at times they get paid too, they make plays. At times a quarterback is going to find a way to make it happen pre-snap. But if it's every pre-snap, you're showing me a 4-man front with a wide 9, and there's no question as to who's pressuring the quarterback. It's the same 4. No disguise. I'm not even saying that you got to bring pressure. I'm not saying that we have to blitz. But what I'm saying is the offensive line doesn't need to know every single play which 4 are coming. You could even send a linebacker and drop a D end. That you've seen in Kansas City. They pressure one side of the ball and they let the other guys on the opposite side fall off. And they'll sometimes steal the ball with the pick. D end lurking opposite side of the field comes straight across to the blitz side and steals a slant. I've seen that. And I've also seen an automatic pressure and a 4-man rush because they didn't expect that specific guy to come. And that's the way you evaluate a defense coordinator. Is he making it tough on the quarterback? And the other thing too, in terms of coverages, the 49ers, I could tell you what coverage they were going to run on third down 95% of the time. That's a bad sign too. I should not know what coverage you're in. Well, the 49ers are going to probably bring 5 or 6 on third down and run man. Pop the tape on and prove me wrong. So it's pretty bad that I know that, and I'm not somebody getting paid to find that out. Don't you think the offensive coordinators coming into San Francisco know exactly what the hell we're in?
100%. To Wilkes' credit, though, he's a good coach. He's not a good defensive coordinator, but I do believe he was a good coach. I believe he was failing miserably at DC, and the players still necessarily didn't turn on him because they know that he's a good coach. I think he had a lot to do in developing Diamador Lenore. So he's just not a DC. And neither was Sorensen. We got our DC back.
Right. Last topic, Jake Moody. The 49ers have decided to bring him back. Probably the worst kicker in the NFL for the last 2 years. I mean, it's pretty easy to say. Jake Moody is not a guy that handles pressure well, and he's just not consistent. Now, how do you define a good kicker? He's got to have high confidence, and he's got to be consistent. He fills both boxes he cannot give a check mark for. Yeah. So my question to you is, how is this guy still on the roster? Why don't we just bring in 2 free agents or draft a guy in the 7th round and just move on? And the only explanation that I have for you is the fact that the 49ers drafted this guy in the 3rd round and they refused to move on.
Yeah, I want to do something fun here. I'm going to pull up the 2023 NFL draft. I want to see what other players went in the 3rd round. I want to see who went after Jake Moody, just for fun.
Yeah, no, I mean, the 49ers had no business drafting Jake Moody in the 3rd round. Had they got him in the 5th or the 6th, they get a kicker in the 5th or the 6th. Mm-hmm. Drafting a kicker in the 3rd round is that the other problem with drafting a kicker so high is you've applied pressure to a position that doesn't need that pressure.
Right away.
And he's instantly got the pressure on his back, and he didn't need that. He's already, like I said, his whole career has shown that he's not a guy that deals well with pressure, and he doesn't have enough confidence, and his consistency is trash. There's really no reason why this guy should still be on the team.
So the pick right after Jake Moody was wide receiver out of Cincinnati, Trey Tucker on the Raiders. I like Trey Tucker a lot. actually. I think he's dangerous, and I think after some development, he could be a good player in this league.
Oh, I'm
Let's
sure
see.
if you go through the whole draft, hindsight's 2020, you're going to find a lot of players that the 49ers could have taken. But I'm not even standing up for them one bit because I would never draft a kicker in the third round regardless.
Well, yeah, that's my whole point. Like, how many of these players do I not know? But like you said, that you're going to find a lot that could have been better. I would rather take a chance on that than a kicker that, like you said, you're setting up to fail instantly.
Something else that Tarek brought up that's interesting is Asante Samuel Jr. is still available, and it is kind of mind blowing. That's a young guy who's played corner at a pretty high level, and he's unsigned. Now, probably it has a lot to do with what he's asking, but the 49ers could use him, and then you're really focusing on the interior that they need to focus on. It just comes down to numbers right now. The other thing too is make no mistake about it. The 49ers are not in. They're not in the market of investing on players this year. They made that pretty clear.
Yeah, no. What do you think his number is? Is he coming off a rookie deal? What's his deal?
Yeah, so his contract ended as a rookie, and they decided not to bring him back.
Yeah, that's interesting that he's not signed yet.
It is very interesting. Like to me, if you're getting a young player, it just comes down to money, and he must be asking more than what teams are willing to give him. That's the only thing that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think the Niners also just invested in a lot of DBs. Like, that's pretty much all they signed this offseason. And some young ones. Like, I think Trey Brown's probably going to get that starting job at the third corner.
Yeah, it all depends on what the 49ers do in the draft but you're right. Trey Brown probably will end up being on the field, and then in terms of nickel formation so that the 49ers can bring in Lenore to the slot, which we've seen a lot of last year. Anyway, I think the 49ers need to cut Jake Moody and take the cap hit, the same thing they did with a bunch of other players, and make 2025 the year of the cap hit, and 2026 is a fresh start. And we move on, and the 49ers hopefully do what the St. Louis Rams were able to execute, which is a quick rebuild, and you find them now as another threat to go for a long run coming into this season. Mm-hmm. That's it for today.
Sorry, I just wanted to end on the big question is they know they got their quarterback. Do we have our quarterback? That's the big question mark that he's going to answer. Brock Purdy's going to answer.
I'm just going to respond to that real quick. Brock Purdy is definitely not the reason. Anybody that thinks that Brock Purdy is the reason why the 49ers didn't win the Super Bowl, they're sadly mistaken. He's a big reason why we even got there. But to say that Brock Purdy is going to win you a Super Bowl on his shoulders, there's only 4 quarterbacks that I think that can do that. And keep in mind, Patrick Mahomes of the 4 is the only one that's been able to do that. So it's a tall order to expect a guy that's not even in the top 4 to put it on his shoulders and win you a Super Bowl. Like Joe Burrow has yet to do that. He got there, but he's yet to do it. Josh Allen's never been there. And Lamar Jackson's never been there. So the top 4, we've only seen one quarterback truly put it on his shoulders and go win a Super Bowl. So stop expecting Brock Purdy to do that. Sure, Brock Purdy is not the reason why you're going to win a Super Bowl, but he's not the reason why the 49ers lost.
Tom Brady couldn't put it on his shoulders, man. The truth.
He did against the Falcons.
No, he didn't.
Yeah,
okay. He put a half on his shoulders.
Okay, guys, that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Till next time, take it easy.